Hello world, I'm here because it occurred to me the other day that there are a couple of demo tracks which I have not used as demos in HiFi stores for ages, and which I haven't actually listened to in ages, and I've certainly not listened to them on the latest incarnation of my system. Now my system hasn't been upgraded for a few years now, but basically what it is, for those who don't know, it's a Rega RP8 amplifier with an Anya moving coil cartridge on it, and that's put into the Rega Aria phono stage. That then goes into the Rega Elicit-R amp, which is their, at the moment, it's their middle of the range amplifier. I'm not sure whether or not they were going to release another one. Whether or not it's been released yet, I don't know, but that would have been higher up and in between the Elicit-R and the Rega Osiris, which is their £6,000 behemoth of an amplifier. Okay, that then goes into PMC 2523 speakers, which are the smaller of the floor standing speakers. I've not got a very big room, as you can see, so I don't need any larger than that. And I've always said that floor standing speakers are far easier to place and far easier to work with in order to get a decent sound balance than stand mount speakers. Stand mount speakers can be a pain in the neck, basically. I would always recommend people to get floor standing speakers if they possibly can. Not least because you've got to buy a set of stands for a pair of stand mount speakers, and you know they all add to the budget, so you might as well spend it on an actual speaker. Yes, so I've also got a Rega Saturn-R CD player, which again is Rega's second to top CD player. It's a dual DAC 24-bit CD player with a separate DAC section, so that you can plug in ancillaries such as a computer or something like that to, access TV or iTunes or whatever. Okay, so the couple of demo tracks that I listened to were Nitin Sawhney's Beyond Skin. Track 11 on that is The Conference, and it segues into Beyond Skin, so that's basically, I call it one track, but it's really two. And then Fascinating Rhythm by Jamie Cullum. And I'll try and assess, really, in the context of these two tracks, what the each component is doing, and the benefits really of having sort of I suppose if you're thinking of upgrading a system, upgrading it to something higher end, okay? Because CD as a source has always been rather underrated. When CD first came out in the 1980s, people, there was an army of protests against it, and I think a record company did, it would have been CBS, did a CD demo of Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run album when it first came out, and some person drove past in their car and was like, and could be heard shouting "fuck you" from there, basically, because in protest of the fact that CD was supposed to have robbed vinyl. And yeah, the first CD players did leave a little bit to be desired, but particularly if you now sort of investigate the upper realms of CD, I'd say something like the Apollo R by Rega, with possibly adding the separate DAC unit that you can buy, and particularly the Saturn-R. I mean, again, there's a tiny bit of debate within Rega circles of whether or not an Apollo R with the DAC bought separately is better than the Saturn-R. I actually, or at least the same quality as, I actually think the Saturn-R is actually a lot better, really, and it kind of brings itself home to me every time I listen to it. The Elicit-R is a funny old beast, really. It's an amplifier that when I first heard, I rejected it, but that was because I had a cheaper pair of speakers, and I think that it's not tolerant of cheaper speakers. It seemed to me to be slightly sort of overworking itself particularly when it came to the bass, and the bass seemed to be sort of out of kilter with the rest of the system. But I think that was down to the speakers. So at the time, I bought Rega's Elicit-R amplifier, which was half the price, and also a lot more sort of in tune with cheaper speakers. It was a very sort of wake you up and get you moving kind of amplifier compared to the Elicit-R. The Elicit-R is much smoother in its delivery, although I think the Elicit-R, from what I've heard of the Elicit-R with PMC speakers, because I did have a listen to them in a hi-fi shop, and I think that the Elicit-R has a much sort of more detailed stereo spectrum, but I think that's possibly because it's lighter in the bass. It's your upper frequencies that give you the stereo information. So yeah, and as I say, these PM speakers, I've been through a number of speakers now from Rega's R3s, which were their range from the early noughties, and yeah, it was the cheapest floor stander there. There's a million miles difference between the Rega R3s and these PMCs. But having said that, the PMCs, sorry, the R3s, which at the time were about 448 quid, they were still an amazing set of speakers, a really good set of speakers. I flogged them on eBay, and I hope that their new owner, as it were, enjoyed them. I then had the Rega RS5s, which are a whole lot more detailed, very airy up in the top end, could get a little bit too aggressive, but only just, slightly uneven in the bass as well, at least in this room. The PMCs are absolutely goddamn perfect. They do everything brilliantly, but then again, they're a lot more money than any of the Regas that I had. And, as I say, at the moment, I'm too poor to do anything. But in the olden days, as it were, a few years ago, then I upgraded this. And I hadn't listened to Jamie Cullum or Nitin Sawhney for absolutely years until I put them on today. And, I was just amazed at how dynamic the whole thing was, and how rhythmic. It could start and stop on a pinhead. Okay, it's like a Mercedes ride. Okay, or I described it as a Cadbury's caramel bar. Hey Mr. Beaver, why are you beavering around? If you remember that advert from the 1970s, and it's a really sort of smooth and calming listen when it needs to be. When the music peps up, the speakers pep up. They need a good bit of volume to, if you're playing them quietly, you always want to feel like you want to turn the music up, which is a great kind of thing to have, because with a lot of today's masterings and stuff, you really feel like you want to turn it down. There are very rare occasions when I want to turn music down nowadays. I always want to turn it up. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's so controlled that and I've tested this, you don't hear it when you go downstairs. If I've left music playing in my flat and I walk down the stairs and whatever, you just don't hear it. Occasionally, if I'm partying, having a little gathering up here and the music's loud, then great. But most of the time, at normal levels and stuff, it's well controlled and brilliant. So Jamie Cullum's fascinating rhythm track on here. It's track number 14, second to last, and it's basically him doing some piano and vocal followed by sort of this kind of rhythmic tapping on the case of the piano, and he's moving around the piano as he does it, occasionally plucking the inner strings of the piano, and it's just an absolute sort of fest of stereo imagery. So it's, you know, both of these tracks will test the stereo imagery. I'm a good sucker for stereo information, I always have been. But, you know, as I say, it's not quite as vivid as the Elicit-R amplifier, you know, the lower one, but it's far more textured. It's far more textured, and, you know, as I say, that rhythm is, you know, it starts and stops on a pinhead. It's like having new brakes on your car. You know, it's amazing, and it's the same really with the conference on here. The conference is essentially 3 musicians. I think it's 3 musicians on there, and they're playing percussion and they're singing the notes of the Indian scale as they play, and you can hear the dialogue going back between them. You know, it's not, you know, in the way that Jamie is sort of moving around, and, you know, as you see him moving around, it's not fast paced like that, but the sort of dialogue between, you know, the 3 players is, you know, evident. And, you know, what's actually really my QuickTime, it's really playing up today. It keeps stopping and starting, so hopefully you don't miss anything of what I say. But yeah, there's a really big bloke with a massive set of lungs on him, or what I imagine to be a really big bloke with a massive set of lungs on him on the right hand side. And he in particular is really amazing, and it's like having this you know, this full-blown human being in front of you. Yes, the others are in sort of full relief too, or as full relief as the Elicit-R will do, but yeah, just amazing. So I'm actually very glad that I put these on today. It was interesting sort of revisiting them and really, you know, sort of hearing how much better they sound compared to, you know, other incarnations of hi-fi that I've had, and they just get better and better. You see, this is the thing about upgrading hi-fi. You think you've got a fantastic hi-fi, and then something comes along and you think, well, it can't get any better, but it does. So, you know, it's a terrible hobby to have in that way, because, you know, it just sort of basically make you yearn for better things. You know, I'm still thinking about that new phono stage that Rega have got, and you know, one day maybe I do need to win the lottery, folks, or you need to donate. I'll put the details for donating down there, and I'll see whether or not I can save up for maybe not the phono stage, that'd be too expensive, but maybe see if I can save up and see if I can upgrade the cartridge from the Anya to the Afita 2, because I've heard that is a very worthwhile upgrade to do. So yeah, yeah, donate down there, and I'll be back. Okay, bye. Oh, by the way, just before I go, there are reviews that I've done of all of the components that I've spoken about on my channel. So if you can bear it, then go and have a look, check those out. All right, bye bye.